Good morning, everybody. We are trying to finish what we started on Tuesday. So even though we covered this on Tuesday, I just think it's, of course, it's such a sort of a little bit of an overwhelming subject, like all of my time. I have to just go over it again and explain it more clearly and be free to ask any questions. But I want to take a few moments. You all should have this list, hopefully, with the terms on Moshiach. You have it with you. I want to check off more things that we've covered in the meantime. Okay, what I'm looking for is number first of all, number 8. I don't think we checked that off, but we had this quite a few times in Gemara when it says Ben David. What does that mean? Right, it's another name, another way of referring to Mashiach as a descendant of King David. I'm looking for where I wrote something about I know what. The class that we gave about Asara Teves, when I told you that the Rebbe instituted that during the 3 weeks in the summer, we should be studying the laws of the Beis Hamikdash in the Rambam. Hopefully, by the time the summer comes, we'll be rejoicing and dancing in the streets and actually see the Beis Hamikdash standing already. But number 27, that is what I was referring to. It says Hilchos Beis HaBechira. I just want to give you the translation to that. Hilchos, of course, means the laws of. Beis HaBechira means the Beis Hamikdash. You might have heard that name before, but that's how the Rambam writes when he talks about the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Bechira means chosen. In the Chumash it says, this is the place that Hashem chose to dwell into. So it's called the house where Hashem chose to dwell there. Beis HaBechira. Just another way to refer to the Beis Hamikdash. The other thing we did was we were studying Mishnayos, which is from the Oral Torah, that has all the measurements of the Beis Hamikdash, and that was number 28. There's a famous teacher that he teaches all about the measurements of the Beis Hamikdash, and he made videos, did exceptional work. But his introduction is that there was a time before that he never studied this subject, to the extent that he didn't even know what these words mean when it says Masechta, the tractate of Midos. And I think I told you what he said was, I thought it meant the tractate of good character traits. But actually Midos here means measurements. The tractate that gives us all the measurements of the Beis Hamikdash. So these are the things that we should study during the 3 weeks. Hopefully we will not need it. Okay, what we're talking about now, another thing is number 35, which I also mentioned. We're going to learn about it in more detail, but you might as well check it off. Does anyone know what 35 is? Hayomim Yohavchu Hayomim Ho'elu L'Sasen or L'Simcha. You know the meaning? What?
You'll be God in those days, like joy and gladness.
Right. So when Mashiach comes, it's referring to the days of fasting. It's a verse in the books of the prophets. Not only when Mashiach comes that we no longer will have to fast, obviously, but Yehavchu, they'll be transformed. Hayamim Elu, these days, l'sasain or l'simcha, to joy, and I guess these are two terms of joy and rejoicing. So, yeah.
Will every fast day become a Yom Tov, or is it just certain ones? Like, for example, Teves, like, will that become a Yom Tov?
Right. All the fast days that are related to destruction of Beis Hamikdash will all become Yom Tov.
Yom Kippur will not become a Yom Tov then?
Yom Kippur is already a Yom Tov.
No, I'm saying, but will it become like, it will become one where we don't fast?
No, I don't know if it could be. It says that when Shlomo Melech built the Beis Hamikdash, there was such rejoicing that he actually ate and drank on Yom Kippur.
Oh, wow.
And there was the heavenly voice that came out to reassure that whoever was participating, obviously they must have done it based on the prophets at that time or the king at that time. And whoever participated in the rejoicing and celebration of the Beit HaMikdash will be guaranteed a share in the world to come. So they have nothing to worry about. So therefore, there's an opinion that maybe the same will happen when Mashiach comes. That the first year when we have the Beis Hamikdash, the third one, again, will be, even on Yom Kippur, will be dancing and singing and celebrating. But I want to point out that Yom Kippur is different than these days. These days we fast because we're mourning, we're crying about the destruction. Yom Kippur we fast because we're like angels. It's a different kind of fasting. It's one of them is lower than eating, and one of them is higher than eating. I'll remind you, I might have said this when the time when it came around Yom Kippur. One of the quotes of a great tzaddik, Rabbi Levi Tzavarditchev, he said it in Yiddish, but we can translate it in English. He said like this: Tisha B'Av is a day that who can eat on that day. Yom Kippur, who needs to eat on that day? The difference is Tisha B'Av was so broken, a person is in such grief that there's no desire to eat. Yom Kippur, when it's such a high, we don't feel the need to eat. That's different. You don't get it? You get it, yeah. Okay, I think so far these are all the things that I wanted to point out. I guess there's nothing here. It should be on this list. Is the elevating of the sparks. Why didn't I put it there? It's a very deep mystical secret why I didn't put it there. It's called forgetting. A mystical term. I'll put it down for now for the future. Bir nitzutzos. Elevating the sparks. Okay, so let's go back to what we said to understand it. That again, in Kabbalah, it's understood that everything that we've been doing in these thousands of years, and especially once the Torah was given, is preparing this world. All the 5,786 years that the world is in existence, according to Torah, is all preparation for the time of Mashiach. And how are we preparing? By refining the world. And the way it's explained in Kabbalah, the refinement of the world is elevating the sparks. And that word for that in Hebrew is birur nitzutzos. I'll write it down so you can put it down on your list. So in Hebrew, it would be spelled Beis, Yud, Reis, Vav, Reis, birur, nitzutzos. Nitzutzos, which means elevating the sparks. In English, it would be BIRUNITZUTZOS. So we explain what that means. So, so first of all, we said that in the spiritual realm, there's a world called the world of Tohu. So let's see if we could remember, where is the world of Tohu? Is it after Atzilus? Is it after Bria, Yitzira, Asiya? Where is in the map, where is the world of Tohu? It's above Atzilus. It's higher than the four worlds. And this is part of that realm which is called infinite. And the light in that world was so powerful, was so intense, was so overwhelming that the vessels that contained the light broke. This is all figurative speech and metaphoric speech, but that's the language. It broke. When it broke, it's like a vessel breaks, it breaks into many pieces. So this broke, and as a result of it, these vessels became 288 sparks. Means 288 kinds of different levels, but they all descended from the world of Tohu all the way down to this physical world. Yeah.
So I just heard something different. I always pictured it was the light that was the sparks, but it's actually the vessel.
The vessel.
Wow.
But I want to just add, but the vessel is also light. Remember, we said the vessel up there is not pots and pans, and it's not dishes, and it's not bowls. The vessel is also light. And the reason why it's called a vessel is because this light contains a higher light. That's why I gave the example of words. Words are considered vessels for feelings and concepts. Because the only way I can communicate a feeling or a concept to another person is through words. But the words are relatively, we call it a vessel because the word is not really the issue here. The issue here is the concept, the idea, the theory, the ideology. And words are just vehicles of communication, just a way to transmit it. If a person has an emotion, a feeling, whatever that feeling is, the words are only there to transmit it from me to you. And even when I'm thinking to myself, I need to think in words. The words are only there so that I can be able to grasp it and it can be transmitted from my subconscious to my conscious. But the words themselves, they're not the issue because in fact, the words could be in any language. Yeah.
Was the last class that the 288 sparks have like a subdivision of 7? Like they are divided in 7?
The 288? Yes.
Which 7?
The 7 emotions were the 7 vessels, and they broke up into 288 sparks. And we said, where are those sparks? In every single thing in the physical world. So really, it's not 288, it's infinite. We explained there's 208 groups, and they're all connected. And when we do mitzvahs, we learn Torah, we make a bracha, it elevates the object, and there are many things connected to it, so hundreds or thousands or millions of things are elevated together with it. And since the beginning of time, especially since the Torah was given, but even before that, when the Jews were in Egypt, the things we do elevate the sparks. Yeah.
But unlike the words, which are the vessels are not the holy thing. The vessels of the sparks, and I know it's only metaphoric, but the vessels themselves are holy.
Right, that's the example that I'm giving. The words in my head, for example, are also not physical. They're also in the thought. But we call them vessels because they're there to contain and facilitate something much deeper, much greater. So in the spiritual world, there's also vessels, which means even though it's light, everything up there is light, there's nothing physical there. But this is really to contain something which is much greater light. So when the vessels broke, which means they no longer were able to contain, let me just make a little illustration here. What do you want to say?
So but the vessels themselves are holy because they're the sparks that fell, the vessels. That's
right.
What we're trying to elevate is the.
Right, they're also light, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just, don't worry, this is just a picture on the blackboard. This is a vessel, let's say. Okay, and there's this light that goes into the vessel. Right. So if this would have been a physical vessel and has in it wine or oil or water, and the vessel breaks, what happens to everything that was in it? It's gone. So when you talk about the vessel and the spiritual vessel, we think more of the analogy that we gave, like with the soul and the body. That if chas v'shalom, something happens to the body that it can no longer contain the soul, what happens? The soul goes back up to its source, which is Hashem, and the body, unfortunately, falls apart. That's what happened here. When these vessels broke, the light that was in the vessels, they went back up to their source, whatever that is, even higher. And the vessels, meaning whatever this was, this fell and evolved and evolved. And this became the spiritual source of all the things in the physical world. And every time we do mitzvahs and everything that was done is like taking a jigsaw puzzle and putting it back together. And once that vessel is complete, then the next thing that happens is, what would it be? That this comes back. Now the vessel is ready to contain it. Yes?
So I'm confused. When vessel is broken, so the light is going down to our world or it's going to ocean?
So the vessel goes down to our world.
Vessel. A light goes.
And this light goes up to its source. When we fix the vessel, then that light which went up comes back down. But the difference is before the vessel couldn't contain it. Now the vessel could contain it. So in other words, and once this vessel in that world contains this big light, now together this has an effect on our world, it affects all the worlds, and that's Moshiach. It's the light of redemption, that light shines, and then all the changes take place in this physical world. So there's nobody in the world that could say the vessel is fixed. How can you know such a thing? We're talking about millions and billions and trillions and infinite pieces spread all over the world. Who knows and who can make that assessment that it comes together? So when the Rebbe made that statement that we're living now in a time that all the sparks have been elevated, can't say anything more than just a prophetic statement. Only someone that has knowledge of things in the spiritual realm could make such a statement. But what does it mean? It means that we're at a new stage now, that the vessel is completed. And now, what are we waiting for? For that light to return back to the vessel. Like I gave the example, if a person, Chas v'Shalom, had an accident and there was some obstruction to the eye and they can't see, and they do some sort of a surgery which corrects whatever went wrong, and then they wait a few days for the vision to come back. They fix the vessel, and now the power of vision has to come back to the eye. And that takes another few days. So therefore, this is the stage we're in now. We're waiting for that light to come down. And not only waiting, I think we can say, based on the Rebbe's talks, the light is already coming down, but it didn't completely go into the vessels. And that's why we are seeing signs of redemption. We're seeing miracles. We're seeing miracles of biblical proportion, but we didn't see the whole picture yet. The whole picture is when we see the Beis Hamikdash standing. That's the picture we're waiting for. And that means that the light now came into the vessel in a complete way. Yeah.
I realize this is off topic, but with the Beis Hamikdash, aren't there two theories? One is that it will be like physically built, and one is that it will just descend.
Yes. There are two opinions. One is the opinion of Rashi, that it's going to be built. It's going to come down from Shemayim, from heaven. The other opinion is Teves, which says that humans will build it. And each one, of course, brings proof to their opinion. And the Rebbe has an opinion, and other Mefarshim also say that we can reconcile both opinions. And they use the analogies like a body and a soul. There's a physical part of the temple that we're going to build with our hands. And as a result of that, the spiritual counterpart of the temple will come down and merge and become one with the physical temple. Yeah.
Follow up. How can we build? Okay, so like you have the Holy of Holies, like no one can go in there except the Kohen like head priest on Yom Kippur. How can we build like that part of the temple if no one's supposed to go there?
So the answer is, being that it's for the purpose of building, we do build it. Not only that, it's an interesting halacha. What if something breaks? Remember we learned, let's say the tiles have to be in place. What if something is not in order and you have to fix it? So you're allowed to go in to fix it.
Okay.
First, we search for a Kohen to go in. What if there's no Kohen that knows how to repair it? So we look for a Levi. What if there's now a Levi to repair it? So we take even someone who's not a Kohen and not a Levi, and he repairs it. But he goes in through the roof. Instead of going in the regular way, they lower him down through the roof, and he's in some sort of like in a container, in a box or something, homemade elevator. And in other words, he shouldn't be looking around, just fix what he needs to fix, and then he goes back out. Yeah.
So I know the answer, but just to confirm, so we were saying the light, we're waiting for it to come down, but we of course are also bringing it down.
Right. Right. So now, when we get to the second, when we do mitzvahs, we learn Torah, we make brachas, we eat an apple and we make a bracha on the apple. All these things which we used to say were elevating the sparks, according to this talk of the Rebbe, now it's more about bringing down the light of Mashiach, which is this light, into the vessels. Yes.
I always pictured it as like we're doing the mitzvahs and it's being built above. We're building it simultaneously with our energy. And when it comes down, it's as if we had built it by doing all of the mitzvahs. We don't know, I mean, maybe there is an answer you can give us, but that was my assumption, that always it was like we're building, right, Beis Hamikdash, and it's being built as we speak. It just hasn't descended yet.
Right.
Right.
That's clearly according to the opinion that it's coming down from heaven.
Yeah.
But now I'm just adding, even the opinion said that we're going to be building it, there's still a certain component that will come down from heaven.
Right.
And that was being built by us all these years through the mitzvahs that we did.
Exactly, because it's just a little illogical for us to just like think, oh wow, it's gonna descend from heaven, it's gonna be there, it's going to be clear space for us. Like realistically, it's hard for us to imagine that act actually happening. Like, we're saying Moshiach tomorrow, okay, but like where's the space? Like, it's just gonna all work out? Like, I guess so, right?
Yeah, it's gonna work
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so
I'm
it's
like-
gonna come down and smush.
It's already there, right? And then what happens to the whole, yeah.
The big question is what happens to the Dome of the Rock, which is the Arabs have a thing there. And the truth is like this. It's very hard to imagine because we're living in 2026.
Very hard, Rabbi.
Very hard to imagine. But even though I grew up after that era, but I grew up when it was still a little bit going on, which is communist Russia. A Jew was not allowed to do anything openly Jewish. They were hiding in cellars. Some of them were executed for that. Some were sent to exile to Siberia. All these are people, our family, uncles, grandparents that went through all these kind of things. And some of them survived. Some of them, unfortunately, didn't survive. That was the life in Russia. Like someone told me once that when they were hiding in a cell in Russia, had a little farbrengen, somebody said, try to imagine what it'll look like when Mashiach comes. And the other one said, we'll be able to walk through the streets in Russia without tzitzis sticking out, with the bear being shown, But right now, that's what's happening. But more than anything else, could you imagine, if you ask anybody, you can't, but if you ask anyone who lived in those days, our grandparents, by the way, I want to tell you, I'll give you an example, how it was so inconceivable. When things started to change in Russia, not all the way, but in the mid-'80s, people from Chabad here were sent to Russia to teach Torah, but they went there for 2-3 weeks, and they did it in Hebrew because Americans don't speak Russian. And they went for just a few weeks, and then they would come back and kept sending more people and more people. And Russia, they probably knew what's really going on, but they pretended they're going there for different reasons. They didn't, of course, openly say what it's about. So I got a phone call if I'd want to go. And of course, I had a question. I'm teaching in the school now. This is in the early 80s. Could I go and have to go? And I remember I mentioned to my mother that I got this offer maybe to go to Russia. And she was hysterical. Don't you dare even think about it. I said, no, but Ma, things have changed in Russia. It's not what it used to be. Russia, nothing changes. I know the communists are there. They haven't changed. It's all bluff. Don't go. It's dangerous. People couldn't even imagine. If you tell them then in those days that Russia will be what it is, they couldn't imagine. On top of that, try to imagine this. In this country, on Hanukkah, they light a big menorah in front of the Kremlin, And the prime minister of Russia comes and he honors the lighting of the menorah. Could you imagine how inconceivable this was in those days? Again, there wasn't war, it wasn't bloodshed. Peacefully comes out and he's honoring the lighting of a menorah, which is contrary to everything that they were doing for 70 years. So we could also imagine that when the time comes, those Arabs that, yes, were fighting us and the Dome of the Rock, they will come and say, we're making space for you to build your Beis HaMikdash. We'll actually help you. I know it sounds funny, but believe me, I know it sounds inconceivable, but it's just as inconceivable as it was in those days. If you would tell someone then that the prime minister of Russia is going to honor a Jewish rabbi and to light a menorah publicly and near the Kremlin. Come on. You're dreaming. That's what they would tell you. Go back to sleep. So what does it mean? It means that this is miraculous. It's not an ordinary thing. The Rebbe said the changes in Russia were miraculous. Who would believe that after 70 years of communist Russia, it would all go down without a war, without bloodshed? Look what's happening in other countries. How much fighting in Russia. What happened was that the leaders of the country decided that the Soviet were abandoning the communist, making it as a communist regime, and that was it. It was actually this time of the year, New Year's. I remember the headlines in one of the newspapers after January 1st. It said, "The party is over," meaning the Communist Party is over. That's all. It was a change on the calendar, and the party was over. I remember an article, they asked the professor, his thing was, with a group of people, they would predict the way things will change politically in the future. So they asked him this question, did your group predict that this is going to happen in Russia? And why? And if you didn't, how come you didn't realize that? So there were a lot of changes taking place in 1990, 91, in different countries around the world. And he said, things are happening that we're happy that we can predict the past. Forget about predicting the future. It was just happening. And this is because Hashem wants it to change. He wants it to change. And part of our davening and learning and doing mitzvahs is that all the changes should happen peacefully, should happen in a good way, in a peaceful way, and not in a way of war and all these other things that are happening. So when the time comes, that'll happen as well. The Beis HaMikdash will just appear. Okay, so I just want to go back to that page, so at least you're familiar with the terms. Look at page 5. So one word is Olam HaTohu. That's the name of the world that we're talking about, where all this took place, the world of Tohu. Don't confuse it with tofu, it's Tohu. It's the world, and literally Tohu means chaos. The second thing is the term Shviras HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels. The third one is the term Rapach Nitzutzim, which means the 288 sparks. The next one, where it says 202 sparks, anyone remember what was that about? 202, yeah.
It was like after those are the sparks that the Israel had to be accomplished in the desert.
Right. And when they went out of Egypt, Arizal writes, at that point, they already elevated 202 of all the sparks. Number 5, it says 86 sparks. What's that? What are the 86? What's that number? What's left is 86 sparks. And the gematria of the name Elokim is 86. And the gematria of the word in Hebrew, Hateva, nature, is also 86. Which basically means there are two names of Hashem. One is the name Elokim, and the other one is the one we don't pronounce, Yud Kei Vav Kei, or we say Havaya. And Elokim is the name of concealment, where godliness is concealed. And that's also nature. Nature is what conceals godliness. Like people who don't believe in Hashem, what do they believe in? Nature. Everything is nature. Nature is responsible for making things happen. So these are the sparks that are hiding godliness in this world, and we have to elevate them. And that's what the Rebbe told us that we've already accomplished. So we understand from this clearly that how much closer we are to the actual coming of Mashiach. And therefore, everything we do now is not about just making it happen, but to make it happen sooner because it's happening in our times and we just have to make it happen sooner. Sooner would be today. 13th of Teves should be the historic day. And remember, we said it first, sitting here. And Moshiach comes. Okay, so now we'll go to section 14. We have a few minutes to start. This is another thing which the Rebbe said, which shows us how much we are so much ready now for Mashiach more than ever before. What did he say? The Avodah of Tshuva has already been completed. So one of the things we're going to be learning in Gemara is how Tshuva is a prerequisite for Mashiach. And in Gemara, we're going to go through this. We'll see. I didn't do Gemara today because this is a subject that I couldn't push off for another week. We had to do it one after the other, so you remember the continuation. It says in Gemara there are two opinions. One opinion says the Jews will not be redeemed unless they do tshuva, and if they don't do tshuva, they will not be redeemed. And there's another opinion that says that it's not something which is a prerequisite, and in fact, if we don't do tshuva, Hashem will find a way to make us do tshuva, and it'll happen anyway. But it's not that we won't have Mashiach unless we do tshuva. But we know that the Rambam writes, and we learned about this one of our first classes, that the Torah said and promised us that what's going to happen before Mashiach comes, we're going to see a global movement of tshuva, and following that, Mashiach will come, which is what we see in the world today. But the Rebbe used a different term. He said, what are we worried about? Tshuva? Jews have already done tshuva. That's finished. We don't have to do that anymore. And the shocking question is, what do you mean we don't have to do that anymore? Nobody's perfect. There's so many people out there that are not perfect. Other than me, I'm perfect. But everybody else is not perfect. There's a whole world out there. And especially if tshuva, everybody's putting on tefillin, everybody's davening, everybody's doing mitzvahs. How could there ever make a statement that we don't need to do tshuva anymore? That's already completed. I want to explain it, and then I'll show you the words inside. Not enough time, so we'll start now. We'll finish next week. We have two identities. One identity as an individual. I am an individual. This is my name. This is my family background. This is my circumstances. This is me as an individual. And the other is we are part of a collective identity that all the Jews in the world are really one. To a certain extent, this applies to, in a sense, in any country. But let me give you an example. Just recently, there was this horrific tragedy that happened in Sydney. Every Jew in the world was shook up, right? My question is, every day, unfortunately, there are people that are Jewish that pass away. More than 15 people. Do people get shook up from that? Why did everybody get so shook up when this happened? Of course, this was through terrorists, but still, all sorts of very painful things happen throughout the world. And we don't find that people get shook up, but when this happened, everybody got shook up. Or other times when terrorists attack a Jew. Why? More than other things.
Instead of attacking us because we're Jewish, it's because we're Jewish.
Okay, so not everybody cares so much about that, but in fact, some people start caring because they're Jewish. So what is it that touches everyone when something like that happens? I mean, you're in the right track, but I want to bring out the point is when someone attacks somebody because they're Jewish, I feel it because we're all one. So I feel that I was attacked. It was me. Again, in any country, I think that if, let's say, someone out there, a terrorist will kill an American, God forbid, all the people in America will be angry and shook up. Why? Because they also have a general identity as Americans or any country, and they feel personally attacked by what just happened. But by Yidden, because of the neshama, we're all more connected spiritually. American is no real connection. I can decide to give up my American citizenship and become Chinese, and go to China. I go to another country, but our Jewish neshama, that's eternal, that's forever, and we're all united. So we all have one collective identity. This is the key, and next week we'll explain it more. When the Rebbe says we've already done tshuva, it doesn't mean I as an individual or you as an individual have done tshuva. We all know we have work to do. It means the collective identity of the Jewish people from the beginning of Avraham Avinu, from the beginning of time until now. We've done so much positive things and mitzvahs and Torah. People gave up their lives for Yiddishkeit. Altogether, we've already done so much. And even since the temple was destroyed the last 2,000 years, all the good that was done together, our collective identity has already done tshuva. There's nothing more to do to be deserving of Mashiach. So the fact that I need to do tshuva or someone else needs to do tshuva is an individual issue. It doesn't affect the collective identity of the Jewish people as a whole. Because collectively, after 2,000 years, if you think of the hundreds and tens and hundreds of thousands or millions of Jews, and every single mitzvah that they did, every act of kindness that they did, every act of giving up their lives for Torah and for Yiddishkeit that they did, all together, we can say that we've done our tshuva. We did our time. And therefore, the Rebbe says, it's no longer blocking and it's no longer in the way because collectively we've done tshuva. This will be compared to a person that imagine somebody, God forbid, had a very serious condition and they've been in the hospital for a year or two and then they needed rehabilitation for another few years. And then the doctor says, you're good as new, you can go home. You're actually healthier than when you came into the hospital because what we did was so successful. It's amazing. And the person says, yeah, but I have a sore throat. So what does that have to do with the price of fish in China? Sore throat. You are where you were, needed really serious hospitalization and then rehabilitation. You have a sore throat, that's insignificant in the big picture, doesn't even count. Same thing here. Collectively, we've done tshuva. The fact that individuals are not perfect and they need to do things doesn't interfere, doesn't take away from the fact that the collective identity of Jewish people have already done tshuva and we're ready for Mashiach.
So what are we waiting for?
What are we waiting for? Just it's scheduled for 11:30. So. The Rebbe said numerous times, it's totally inconceivable why in the world it didn't happen yet. Sometimes you find people say, why Mashiach didn't come? These two people had this big fight and they're fighting there. All these things are nothing compared to all the good that was done throughout and all the ages. And not only that, anything done negatively before is gone. Why is it gone? First of all, throughout the years, people did tshuva. If they didn't do tshuva in this world, their soul went through whatever process went through in that world, and that wiped everything away. So the negative things that are done, they're not there all the time, but the positive things that were done are eternal. Anything godly and positive is forever. That's never wiped away. And it all accumulates. Hundreds and thousands and millions and infinite of good things and infinite acts of tshuva, infinite times of Jews did tshuva. So therefore, there's no way to understand why in the world are we still here. Only Hashem knows that. Well, I'm just going to say that all the talk is about what we can do, but not trying to understand why. Yep.
So I love this, but I'm thinking it's not very positive. I'm thinking, we always hear we need unity and it happened because Jews hated for each other. We need faceless love and there's still disunity amongst Jews in the world. And we hear the
So we have to change the language. If someone says because people are united, that's why Mashiach didn't come, that X that out. We don't talk like that anymore.
Wow.
What we do say is if there'd be unity, that'll bring Mashiach faster. In other words, that the positive
do the teshuva anymore.
Right, but the positive things will hasten Mashiach's coming. Yeah. Have a great Shabbos.
Good job.
And we should merit to have the big Shabbos very soon.
I was looking at these fellas. The lines were open so better. Yeah, I do.
Good morning, good morning.
It makes sense.